Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GED Report. I'm G.
And I'm D.
We got a big show for you planned today. We're going to be talking about a couple of pretty important topics. We're going to lead it off with the latest in Congress, which is broke, by the way, on the January 6th commission. So tell us what you know about that, D.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, good to see everybody. The House had negotiated the framework for a January 6th commission, much like the 9/11 commission, to investigate what happened, all the related causes. And because while Congress has some committees, some oversight committees that are looking into it right now, which is, I'll get to that in a second, but those committees don't go very far. Let's just put it that way. And so John Katko, one of the Republican members from New York, was asked by Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, to negotiate with the House and Democrats on coming up with this framework. And basically, Speaker Pelosi had introduced a framework that the Republicans thought was too generous to the Democrats. So Republicans asked for equal representation, split numbers of members at 50-50. They asked for subpoena powers on both sides. They asked for the commission to end by the end of the year, which I always think is interesting when people say, do this job, but you can only do it in this time frame, because what happens if the investigation takes longer than that? But That's my opinion. So the Democrats said, okay, cool. That's what you want. We'll do that. And it'll be a commission that's bipartisan, 50-50. Both sides have subpoena power. They put a stipulation that no one on the committee can be either currently serving in office or already announced as a candidate for office. So that'll keep, hopefully, them from naming like Marjorie Taylor Greene to the committee,
right,
or something like that, something crazy like that, which wouldn't surprise me. And then Speaker McCarthy suddenly said, well, even though I got everything I wanted, I'm going to vote no and actually whip against the bill and encourage my members to oppose it. So when they had to vote, 35 Republicans actually joined the Democrats and passed it. So it's passed the House now, but it should have been 432 or however many, because there's a few open seats because of some deaths, but it should have been 400 some odd to nothing is what it should have been.
Yep.
Because you would think that every member of Congress would welcome having an investigation into this, but the Republicans don't. Republicans are scared for several reasons. Number one, Kevin McCarthy's scared to death that he's going to have to testify under oath and talk about the phone conversation he had with former President Trump.
Oh, right. The one where Trump said, I guess they're just more interested in the outcome of the election than you are.
You are, my Kevin. That's exactly right. So McCarthy's scared of that. Republicans say, oh, the Democrats are going to politicize this. And, at some point you got to go, everything's political, but we need to know what happened. I think they're also scared that we're going to find out that, members like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Paul Gosar were communicating with these people the day before and the day of the actual insurrection, and they don't want that to come out. And so it's funny that they're accusing Democrats of playing politics with it when their concerns are political.
Right.
So now it's gone to the Senate. Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch, has already announced that he is opposed to the bill, even though 35 House Republicans voted with it. He calls it the House Democrats bill. It's looking like the Republicans, looks like they're going to try to filibuster it. So there's not going to be 60 votes to pass it. So the very first filibuster of this session of Congress is going to be on investigating the insurrection of our Capitol.
Right. Well, at some point you'd think that Joe Manchin would wake up and smell the coffee and realize that, it's time, the time for bipartisanship passed in the 80s. I hate to say it, but people like Rush Limbaugh, his mantra used to be, if you're compromising, you're losing. There's no compromise. It's our way or the highway. Well, okay, if that was good enough for you guys back then, it's good enough for the Democrats today. And while you want to have a perfect world and you want to have things done a certain way, as the Republicans are fond of saying, elections have consequences. And by golly, the Democrats won this election by however razor thin a margin, you can bring that up all you want. The fact is they won the election, right? They control both houses of Congress. So by God, act like it, break out that bully stick and start swinging it. Get some stuff done. Don't stand up there and be a punching bag for the Republicans. Pass some stuff and then go tell the American people what you passed and why the stupid Republicans weren't on board. Because at the end of the day, everything I'm reading online, the Republicans are just about done for. They just need somebody standing at the grave, with one boot ready to kick them in the butt and put them in the coffin.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And the thing is, Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, and there's a few others too, Tim Kaines and some of those that are trying to push this bipartisan thing. And it's like, guys, if they won't be bipartisan on a commission to investigate the most deadly attack on our capital since the War of 1812, you think they're going to be bipartisan on roads and bridges? You think they're going to be bipartisan on voting rights? You think they're going to be bipartisan on anything? They're stacking this thing. Their whole thing is to try to block anything good from happening. And then they hope that when they get to 2022, they've put enough institutional racism into the voting laws and they've restricted and suppressed the vote enough that they can squeak it out and win the House back. That's their whole goal. Yep. And then they're going to try to impeach Joe Biden for no reason at all. They'll bring up Hunter Biden's laptop and they'll do it. And if they win the House, they will do it. They will impeach Joe Biden. It'll be a revenge impeachment.
Yep.
It'll happen. And so I'm with you. I'm full speed ahead. Pass everything through reconciliation. Jam it down their throats. Just like say you had a Supreme Court seat open 2 weeks before an election. I don't know what the Republicans would do if they were faced with that. Do you know what they would do?
No, I have no idea, Amy Coney Barrett.
They would jam it through like Amy Coney Barrett. And that's what, and you're telling me if Georgia had turned out different, they wouldn't be doing that?
They would.
They would be jamming things through. So I'd jam everything I could through. And just like you, I'd go out and I'd campaign on the do nothing Republicans. And I'd campaign on the fact that they don't even want to investigate people who attacked our Capitol. And is that who you want in charge?
Right.
But it's and Schumer at some point, Schumer has also got to, he's got to put some bills on the floor.
Right.
And they need to throw caution to the wind, and they need to tell Manchin as a first step, if you're not going to get behind getting rid of the filibuster, then we're gonna go back to the way the filibuster was, and we're going to put the January 6th commission on the floor. And I want to see Charles Grassley and Jim Inhofe and Richard Shelby and all these guys in their 80s. I want to see them sleeping in cots in the cloakroom and staying up all night to actually filibuster these bills. And then you go out to the American people every other hour and you say, look what they're doing. They're blocking anything from happening. They're blocking from getting your roads and your bridges, like the bridge in Memphis going over the Mississippi River. They're blocking all that from happening because they don't want to have an investigation into what they did.
Right. And what they did. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Something's got to give. And it all centers on Joe Manchin because he and Sinema. But I think if Manchin were to go along, Sinema would as well. So, and the thing is, I mean, I know they think they're in a Republican state down there in Arizona, but they got 2 Democratic senators, and you don't hear Mark Kelly standing in the way of things. And he's the one most vulnerable. He's got to run again here pretty soon.
Exactly right.
Sinema's got 5 more years to go.
Yeah, and they're crazy enough on the Republican side that if you focus in, and I think that's where Biden's been really smart in his presidency, is he's focused on accomplishing things and getting things done. And you pass an infrastructure bill that includes some of these other benefits. When those child tax credits start kicking in July, people start getting checks for having kids. I mean, you start seeing some of these other things affect the economy. You start seeing the jobs numbers get better. And then you go out and you campaign the heck out of it. And, there's another topic, which we don't even have on our list today, but there's debate right now whether, Nancy Pelosi may not seek re-election.
Huh.
And so she's considering retiring. So that would be their chance to be able to put forward another Speaker of the House and say, here's who our new Speaker is going to be. Here's our platform. Here's how we're going to continue this and keep things going. And I think that the Democrats have a strong path forward. Sometimes a midterm with a president like this, it's really tough. I think George W. Bush is the only president who's gained seats in his first midterm in the House.
Yep.
And that was basically because of 9/11. And they ran Karl Rove ran some really tough campaigns against some people. And, it was basically stay on board with the president because of 9/11, and we can't change course, and we can't, put a Democratic Congress in power, blah, blah, blah. But they've got a really strong chance if they go for it. But they got to go for it. They can't be timid. They can't set back. Republicans are not going to cooperate with them. They're not going to.
If I was Nancy Pelosi, I'd run again because she's a shoo-in to get elected in that district. I'd run again. I would then handpick my successor for Speaker of the House. I would throw my weight behind them. And as soon as the Speaker election is over, I would resign and let the governor of California appoint my successor.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Anyway, let's switch gears and go to our next topic. So our next topic is about a man named Dartavius Barnes. And you may not have heard of Dartavius, but you should have. He's just the latest in an epidemic that's spreading across America. We've got 2 cases of it we're going to tell you about. But Mr. Barnes was stopped in Springfield, Illinois. And the cops that stopped him searched his car and came back and said that they found drugs in his car and he was being arrested for drugs. They detained him for at least 47 minutes. And we know that's the amount of time because that's the amount of body cam footage they released. And when he started to question them about where the drugs were and what they found, they pulled out a container that, I kid you not, contained the ashes of his 2-year-old daughter. That's what the police said had their testing turned up cocaine. Now, I've seen people's ashes before. I've spread my mom's ashes. They're gray. Last I checked, cocaine is pretty much white. I mean, it's about as white as the officers that arrested Mr. Barnes. So, they eventually released him. He's now suing the city of Springfield. I mean, it's pathetic what these people have to go through because of racism in America. I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, the fact that they would have the gall to test a person's ashes in a decorative urn, which is what this was. I mean, it's appalling. And police, I've talked to a lot of police since, Black Lives Matter movement started, and, they're all like, well, we can't, we're having trouble finding candidates these days. I don't understand why the public's so against us. Well, hello. And what they all want to preach is, well, it's just one bad apple. Well, it's one bad apple every damn day. Every day something comes up.
Well, I'll just say a couple of points about this before we talk about the next case too, is that my heart goes out to this guy because he had a 2-year-old daughter that passed away, which is hard enough to deal with. And then on top of that, to have her ashes be desecrated that way and and him to be falsely accused, it's just one more example. But, one thing about it though is this is not, and these things happening are not something new. And it's not a new thing that's happening from a standpoint. The fact of the matter is, now that more people have cell phone cameras, and now that more that most police officers are required to wear body camera footage,
right? Now
it's being captured. What African Americans have had to put up with for hundreds of years.
Yep.
And it continues to be a plague on us. And the whole one bad apple thing. Well, you know what? If I have a rotten apple and it's in a container here with 3 or 4 other apples, eventually that rot starts to spread over to the other apples.
Yep.
And so the best thing you can do with a rotten apple is to extricate it and get rid of it, throw it away.
Yeah, as fast as possible.
And there's too many cases where other cops are covering up for people, where they're, that thin blue wall of silence they talk about. And it just makes the public have no confidence at all. And it makes, especially in minority communities, why would they want to cooperate? That's what, it gets me when they say, oh, this person ran from the police. They shouldn't run from the police. Well, when you see cases like this where people are falsely accused, or about like the next case we're going to talk about, even murdered, you go, wouldn't you run if you were in that situation?
Yeah. If I was black, if a cop tried to stop me, I would get to the most populated area I could get to. And then I would open my door, jump out of the car, and stand, with my hands above my head.
Well, look at the gentleman in Virginia a few weeks ago, where I think it was in December of last year, but the Army officer.
Yep.
Who that's what they came up on him with the taser, and where the guy said, "You're getting ready to ride the lightning."
Yep.
Was because he kept driving, but he said, "I wanted to get to somewhere that had lights."
Yeah. Yeah. And how about the kid in Minnesota who was killed because the officer couldn't, grabbed her gun instead of her taser, and he was stopped because he was displaying a air freshener from his rear view mirror.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our, this next case is just as ludicrous. This person was stopped for running a red light, and we're actually going to show some video here. So let me see if I can share my screen.
And before we show this, just let everyone know it's tough to watch.
Yeah.
It's think before you watch this. It's hard.
Right. Yeah. So, as it says, this is graphic video and language. So this is body cam footage from the officers that responded.
I'm not getting much audio through Gman.
We're not getting any audio.
No, it's. I think it illustrates the point.
Yeah. Basically, you can see this guy's handcuffed. Now there's the tasers out, and basically, how do you resist arrest when you're lying on the ground with your hands behind your back?
Yeah. One of the things I read was they said he kept trying to turn over, and by all accounts, what I've seen, he's trying to turn over because he's trying to breathe.
Right. You can see the captions here. These are officers' statements by officers.
Yeah. So let's talk about Ronald Green a little bit, because when Mr. Green when he arrived at the hospital, he was pronounced dead on arrival.
Right.
And the officers who transported him there even stated that he died on impact from a car crash during the car chase.
Right.
And the attending physician noted when he rolled Mr. Green's body over that he had 2 taser, and I think it's prongs, maybe, or forks might be the right term, from the taser in his back. So if he died in a car from impact in a car wreck, how did he have taser prongs in his back?
Right. Well, then I didn't quite hear. Did you say this happened 2 years ago? So they've covered this up for 2 years?
This has been covered up for 2 years ago. They told the family, even the family refused to give in, kept pressing. Last week, the Associated Press, through Freedom of Information Act, was able to receive certain parts of the video. And then today, I believe the state police in Louisiana decided to release all the video.
Right.
This man was systematically tortured to death.
Yep.
And
it sure didn't look like he was resisting from what I saw.
Well, and the Supreme Court has ruled, I believe we've talked about this on the podcast before, but the Supreme Court has ruled that just because you run from an officer or even resist, that unless you present a danger to the officer, they don't have the right to execute you summarily in the streets.
Yep.
They tased this guy like 5 or 6 times. You can hear him begging. You can hear him saying he's scared, saying, I'm scared, I'm scared. And, you know, I think to your point earlier, where you said some of the police officers don't understand why the public either doesn't trust them or doesn't like them or whatever their statement was. I think they forget that badge says protect and serve.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's to the point where, you know, okay, maybe there's one bad apple, but how do you know you're getting that bad apple or you're not getting that bad apple when you're being pulled over? I mean, it's just, I mean, it's crazy the way they're treating people. And then they want to, whine and complain when people start talking about changing the way we police people. I mean, it's just, I mean, this country is on the precipice of, basically going in the toilet from a lot of different angles. I mean, you look at what happened on January the 6th, you look at what's happening every single day across the country with police departments. And there was one aspect of this, we were talking in the pregame tailgate show, I think we need to bring back in. So tell us about one of the arresting officers and what happened with him.
Yeah, one of the officers was fired when they did their internal investigation, and the same day he was fired, there was some audio that was leaked as well, where he talks about, he says, I beat the ever loving F out of the guy. We did everything we could to him. And he also mentioned, and some of the body camera mentions, that they were concerned about whether he had AIDS or not, because they said he was bleeding so much. It was just heartless. But that officer, the same day he was terminated, he died in a one vehicle accident as well. So,
right. Well, didn't they drag this guy by his feet? So they're dragging his face on the pavement.
At one point, they drug him by his feet. They had him in ankle restraints, and they grabbed those and drug him across the pavement like that way. And it's just, I mean, it's sickening to see people treated this way. And so when you mention about having psychologists involved and things like that with arrest and things like that, you know, people go, oh, well, we don't want to send, you know, if you got somebody breaking in your house, you want us to send a psychologist. That's not what people are talking about.
Right.
We're talking about
this guy was speeding and ran a red light.
Exactly.
I mean, when they got him stopped, they should have issued him a ticket and said, you know, see you in court, not killed the guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, it's just, there's a lot of debate. We've talked about this. There's other countries where the everyday officers don't carry guns.
Yeah.
They don't carry, but of course the guns weren't used in this particular one. But it's just, you know, at some point we're going to have to invest in better, you know, hiring better or something. But, you know, we hear more training, but this problem is so endemic. I don't know that we can train our way out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, it was just a report, I believe it was yesterday, of a road rage incident in Los Angeles where a 6-year-old boy was shot by the other vehicle, which caused the road rage. And, you know, they're still searching for that guy. And he just indiscriminately shot into the vehicle and killed a 6-year-old boy. You know, that kid's never going to grow up. He's never going to graduate. He's never going to get married and have kids, all because some idiot got ticked off at how he was being, you know, how things were going on the road and pulled out a gun and shot somebody. You know, that doesn't happen in Australia. That doesn't happen in New Zealand because they have different gun laws than we do. And because we have the Second Amendment, everybody thinks they have a right to carry a gun whenever and wherever. And it's just ludicrous until we solve this problem. And the only way to solve it is to have a policy like Australia, New Zealand, and England, where the only way you get to use a gun is you go to a gun club that has land that allows you to hunt and use guns like you want to, go target shoot or whatever. and that's going to take a monumental effort. It's going to take a door-to-door search, people going into houses. It's not going to be pretty. But until we do that, until we have the wherewithal, the political wherewithal to do that, and I don't know who would, because it's certainly not going to be the Republicans, and Democrats, I don't think, want to do it, because if they do, they'll never get elected for the next 50 years. But
Yeah.
somebody's got to have the cojones to own, to step up and say, we got to do this for the good of the country, because too many of our citizens are dying every day. And once you do that, then the gun problem goes away, and it'll be a different country. And like you said, people still find ways to kill people, just like this last case. There was no guns involved, and the guy still got, still was killed. So,
Well, and there's the police reform bill before Congress. It's not going to go anywhere based on what we talked about before, because Republicans are going to block it. But at some point, you've got to deal with qualified immunity, and the fact that they just grant systematic immunity to officers in so many cases, and you got to start holding some of these folks accountable.
well, I would sue if I was that family, either one of these families. I would sue the entities, so the city of Springfield and the state of Louisiana, and then I would sue each of the individual officers individually for wrongful death.
Yeah,
I would, and I'd take everything they got. And you know what? If that happens, and the more it happens, cops see what they're in line for, they're going to make sure they're pulling their taser. They're going to make sure they don't mistreat people and kill them in the street. And here's the thing: if you're a drug dealer and you're shooting back at a cop and they shoot and kill you, nobody's going to, find fault with the cop, right? Your life's in danger. They're trying to kill you. You kill them. That's not going to come up. But somebody runs a red light and you kill them, that's BS, man.
somebody has an air freshener hanging from their rearview mirror. Somebody passes a counterfeit $20 bill.
Yeah, I mean, people should not be dying for these things.
No,
No matter what color your skin is.
no.
So,
Well, what's the week ahead look like? Looks like the Senate will probably consider the 1-6 commission this week, so we'll get to see if they go ahead and try to filibuster it. Was hope from President Biden that actually May 25th will be the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's passing. That
right.
And let me correct myself, of his murder.
Right.
Not his passing, his murder. President Biden was hoping for police reform to be passed by then. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Tim Scott's still negotiating with the Democrats on this. I think just like we talked about with infrastructure and 1-6, I think this is going to be another case where Tim Scott negotiates something and then the Republican Party hangs him out to dry because they're going to say, we can't back that. It's too far, even though he's been authorized to negotiate on their part, which leads us back to that original point about if they're not going to negotiate in good faith, there's no reason to negotiate with them at all.
Yeah. Well, and they're not going to negotiate in good faith. So, I mean, they've proved that. So, can you imagine if Clarence Thomas died, what we'd have over a Supreme Court nominee right now? I mean, how crazy.
They should, if that happens, they should. They've eliminated the filibuster on it, so you don't have to worry about the filibuster.
But you still got to get Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to vote.
Well, I mean, at that point, you just got to say, this is happening and you're doing it.
Right. See, I think Biden, who is somewhat of an old time politician, I think he needs to go to those two, and I think he needs to have them over to the White House and basically say, look, you want stuff for your state, you're not going to get anything if you don't start playing ball.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the details, but I do know that he had 2 phone conversations with Joe Manchin last week, and neither one of them would talk about the details, which means to me it probably was not how are the kids?
Right. Right.
And I would imagine that probably some of that stuff came up where it said, listen, you got to get in line on this. But yeah, it would be so. I mean, I would not want to be around Mitch McConnell if something happened to a Republican justice at this point, because he would be screaming to the high heavens, we have to wait till the next election.
Oh yeah, sure he would.
This
If I was
is
Chuck Schumer, I'd say, no, we're going to approve somebody tomorrow.
yeah.
And,
Barack
his name is Merrick Garland. We'll find another AG.
His name is Barack Obama.
Now that'd be even better. Yeah.
So,
Although you might want to look for somebody a little younger. That's the theme these days, is to get judges in their 40s. So Brock's almost 60.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think Anthony Weiner's available.
There's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
And for good reason.
I do want to say before we close that things are starting to ramp up in New York, and it looks like shortly, and we'll see if the New York state government has the wherewithal to pull this off. But it looks like they're getting close to issuing an arrest order for former President Donald J. Trump, who I believe this next week is slated to speak to the Republican convention in North Carolina. So he hasn't announced whether he's going to run again in 2024, but he's starting to ramp up. Oh, there is one last thing I wanted to say. Republicans have found a primary challenger to Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska. Now, a quick little history about Lisa. They primaried her last time and she lost. She lost the primary. She gathered enough signatures in like a week to get on the ballot as an independent, and then she won with, I believe, about 60% of the vote. So she's a formidable opponent. So now the Republicans have a primary opponent, supposedly one backed by Trump. And it just came out that when he was 18 years old, living in Florida, he fathered a child with a 14-year-old. So you've got a pedophile running against Lisa Murkowski.
Well, wasn't that I don't want to jump in here, but wasn't that the primary opponent for Liz Cheney?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, it was Liz Cheney, not Murkowski. Sorry. So,
but I think they do have somebody lined up to run for Murkowski against Murkowski. Right. But you know, Cheney said bring it on, so we'll find out.
Yeah, I think she's going to win pretty big in Wyoming. I don't think that guy has a shot. So. But if the Democrats have a good candidate in Wyoming, now would be the time to bring him out, him or her out.
Yeah. Well, they did just have a presidential poll that came out, and Biden was in a head-to-head against Trump. It was for 2024. I know it's not too early to start talking about. Biden was at 48%, and Donald Trump was, I believe, at 33%.
Yeah.
When they did the Republican primary poll, Trump was, I think, in the high 40s in that poll.
Right.
And then there's a slew of other candidates. The only other candidate in double digits was Michael Pence at, I believe, 12%. Don Jr. came in at 7%.
Right.
Which was interesting to me. And Josh Hawley, by the way, 0%.
Right.
Mitt Romney actually polled in about 4 or 5%. But it was interesting to me that Trump thinks he owns the party, and Republicans in Washington pretty much treat him like he does, but he only had like 48% of the vote. You'd think he'd be in the high 70s.
Well, that was Cheney's big argument, is that the numbers don't bear out the amount of loyalty they're trying to give to Trump. I mean, basically, at least from what I can tell, now you still have some people out there that are diehard and they're never going to change, but you know, some sense of sanity has returned to the country after 4 years of insanity. And, you know, things are calm. You know, there's not a crisis every day. You know, Republicans point to the crisis at the border, but, you know, that's being dealt with. And, you know, that's a crisis that Trump created. You know, everything was going along pretty well until he started separating kids and, you know, basically as a quote deterrent to keep people from coming, which is a stupid idea. Just made us look really bad in the eyes of the world. Anyway, that mess is getting straightened out. You know, we've got some problems. You know, we just dealt with the Palestinians and the Israelis, you know, had a positive outcome there. We are in talks with Iran over there, you know, getting close to having the bomb, but who knows where that'll go. But I think if we get that out, and like you said, the economy continues to improve, I think the Democrats are going to have a good electoral season come 2022 and 2024.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Republicans just continue to out crazy themselves with the America First tour with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Our governor in Oklahoma is up for reelection next time, and he stated this week that Joe Biden's to blame for the sauce shortage at Chick-fil-A.
Right.
So, I mean, they just continue to out crazy. They're not a serious party.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a person tell me the other day that, think about this. It can't be a coincidence that, when the swine flu came and the bird flu came and then COVID came, Joe Biden was in a high office, either VP or president for all of those. And I said, yeah, except that COVID started under Trump.
Yeah. There you go again, using logic and common sense.
Right.
Everybody be safe out there. We're getting, if you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, I encourage you to get it. It's the quickest way we can get reopened and get back to some sense of normal. But everybody be safe out there. Take care of each other.
Yep. We'll see you next time.